I would like to take a moment before we get into today's main episode and to talk about my sponsor for the podcast. Podmatch is a new podcasting site dedicated to all podcasters. The platform helps hosts get connected with potential guests to appear on their show, as well as allow guests to find podcasts that will give them a chance to share their story. Podmatch offers many tools to help organize your page, from to-do lists to episode planning to potentially appearing on a leaderboard. Podmatch has it all. The best part, you have the potential to get paid. And who doesn't like to get paid from home? I like to. With an easy sign up, you can start connecting with podcasters and guests immediately. I have been a part of Podmatch since the beginning of May, and I have got to say that it was the best decision I've ever made because Podmatch helps your podcast grow. It helps you get connected with people that have very interesting, very compelling background stories that are just waiting for their story to be shared. So if you are a host or guest and would like to start building professional relationships, explore more opportunities, and have your story shared, I highly suggest that you sign up with Podmatch today by going to joinpodmatch.com/lethal venom to start expanding your network in seconds. I would like to give another huge thank you to Podmatch for sponsoring this episode. Now on to our main episode, and again, you can sign up at joinpodmatch.com/lethal venom to begin your podcasting journey today. Hello everyone, welcome to the Lethal Venom Podcast. This is a show where I talk about anything I want with the honest to God truth, no lies told. Today I'm joined by Mr. Dennis Quinn. He is an author, a three-time Big Brothers/Big Sisters volunteer, and assists in mentor programs in the Juvenile Court system. The second oldest of 9 children raised in Montana, he now resides in Gig Harbor, Washington. He retired in 2023 following careers as a flight attendant and real estate agent. He recently published Stick Figures, A Big Brother Remembers, a memoir of his 13-year journey with his little brother, who later developed mental illness. Quinn's writing and speaking engagements honor legacy, giving a voice to at-risk children in need of additional adult guidance and support. So, a huge thank you and welcome to Dennis for joining us. Thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation. I appreciate it.
So, if you could just introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about your background.
Sure. Like you mentioned, I'm the second oldest out of 9 kids. There were 4 girls and 5 boys. And we grew up in Montana, in Helena, which was about 35,000 people at that point of time. And our, both of my parents were very involved in our upbringing. My mom was a stay-at-home mom and my father had a private dental practice. And I went to both grade school and high school, and then also college in Helena. So when I moved away from Helena, which was in 1979, to become a flight attendant, it was the first time I had moved out of the city and whatnot, and it turned out to be a really great experience. Gave me a lot of exposure to different things, and that's when I first became involved with the Big Brother Big Sister program. And the motivation for that originally came from just watching TV and seeing commercials about Big Brothers Big Sisters, and I couldn't imagine what it would be to grow up in a situation where I didn't have my father there and helping and being a part of my life. So that was kind of my inspiration to get there in the beginning.
Can you explain a little bit about what the Big Brother Big Sister program is and what it?
Sure, it's a national organization here in the United States, and I'm not sure if they operate in other countries, but what it was, especially the first time when I got involved, it was a matching of trying to have male mentors to spend time with a kid, asking for a year commitment to do that, and it was generally targeted, I think, to mostly kids who did not have a consistent male figure in their life. Most kids living in single parent homes with the mothers where the father wasn't involved with them and and it was to provide some male contact, a mentor sort of situation, and the consistency they wanted it for a full year commitment from it, because a lot of these kids had been in situations where they might have had a male in their life for a while, and then they vanished, and they didn't want them to go through that. And there was also the Big Sisters program, which is similar, matched in similar means, and they had different chapters all over the United States and under the umbrella of a national organization. And that's where I heard of it, as I mentioned, on a television commercial. And when I first started flying in Minneapolis, I had a real irregular schedule and a lot of free time. And I had decided that I would do that to be a big brother. And so that's when I applied, and I got matched out there in 1980 with an 11-year-old boy that was living at home with his mom. His father was not in the area. He had met him a couple times, but he was not real involved in the kid's life.
How has this whole experience impacted you personally?
Personally, it's been a real good experience for me. I think I went into it with the idea, okay, I'll help this kid out and get him on track and fix some of the problems in his life. And I learned pretty quickly that you didn't do that. That wasn't the aim to it. You became a friend, you hung out with him. You don't replace dad. Meaning, even though he had not seen his dad a lot, he still talked about dad, dad, dad. And it just became a commitment that I had, which was also helpful to me because in the initial part of my flying, you had a lot of time off. There was a lot of unstructured time. Also, there was a lot of people who were transferring bases, spend some time here, spend some time in another base, and a lot of instability. And this gave me a commitment that I had to honor uh, basically weekly is what I did it for a year, and I ended up being with him as his big brother for about 4 years until I moved. I transferred out to the Seattle base, and I remained friends with him for the rest of his life. Actually, he passed away in November from an accident at work, but he was a good friend. I was his big brother. And I was his best man at his wedding, godson to his, godfather to his son, and it was just a real good experience that came out of from just that. Okay, I'll go do this, and his life, his economic situation, his life, his family life, all of that was very different from what I grew up in. And so that was, for me, it was a good experience it opened my eyes to other people and how life was for them that I hadn't seen or been closely associated with when I was in Helena, which was, pretty sheltered and pretty, uh, uh, not a real diverse community, to put it mildly.
What impact do you feel it has made for the kids you have mentored?
I know for we were friends for the rest of his life, and he made it really clear that I had really helped him. His mother has made that clear, and it was just a person of stability that could help out by showing up, and just someone in their life that he was not, the first little brother was not a real emotional kind of kid. He didn't give a lot of feedback or anything like that. And at times you'd wonder, okay, am I making a difference, or am I making an impact, or am I wasting my time here? And then I remember getting together with him and one of his friends one time, and the friend said, "Hey, he talks about you all the time." And I could tell from what he was saying that, okay, this is helping him out. It's a making an impact on him, and to continue on through his life with him. That was really a good thing for me, and it was a good thing with him. I know him and his family had been out here several times on vacation, and we're all still in contact. The second little brother I met in 1992 in Seattle. He was a 7-year old when I met him. He had been in and out of foster homes and was in the process of being adopted by a woman who served as his foster mother for most of that time. And he had some physical handicaps and emotional handicaps, and it was a more challenging match. And he was very emotional. I mean, very he would express his emotions real well. he would, make you very well known that he really enjoyed hanging around with you, and you were a good guy to him, and that continued on. That's the story that I have written the book about. We were together for a 13-year period, and he developed mental illness when he hit puberty. I had met him when he was 7. And at about that time was when I had moved out of the county, the Pierce County. At that time, there was a county agency, and so they closed the match because we were out of their jurisdiction area. But I still continued to see him, and then I continued following through with him when it reached a point where he was not safe to live at home anymore. And so then he was being bounced in and out of group homes or running away from them, and in different places that they try to house him. And finally, he ended up institutionalized. But all during that period of time, I would keep track of him and get together with him probably every couple of weeks or so until through the entire period of it. The third little brother I had, it was a lunch buddies program at the school this year, where it was an in-house type of situation where adults got together and they were matched with some kid that they had lunch with every other week, is what it was. That was really unique because it was a short period of time you were with the boy in a lunch situation, and then it was out to recess. And the kid I had more energy than any kid I've ever met in my life. He was a motor that couldn't stop, and that was real different. Fortunately, are not going to have that program again next year. They were hoping to have the matches continue on beyond that school year, but funding, I guess, has cut that. But they have put out there that if you wanted to see about being involved with this kid in another form of their matches or whatnot, to let them know. So I am under the consideration right now of if that is the direction I'm going to take.
As a gay man, what challenges have you faced in serving as a mentor, or have there been challenges?
There have been challenges in when I first applied for Big Brothers and Big Sisters in I wasn't out with my sexuality, and I was still struggling with it pretty intensely. And they asked if you were heterosexual or homosexual, and I told them I was heterosexual. And the caseworker made the comment that is, it's just we have to ask everyone that, and it doesn't exclude you from being a big brother. But we let the mother know, and the mother is briefed on who they are going to match or as a possibility of a match, and that would be told to the mother, and the mother had the final decision on yes or no what I would make this match with my kid. And so that was she didn't have any qualms about that. I had told her I was heterosexual, and that just really wasn't an issue throughout that time we were together. When I went to the orientation meeting, and expecting that was the same thing, because that had been the national guideline for how they handled that situation. The interviewer, or the person conducting the meeting, got up there and he said, "We're looking for heterosexual role models for our children." And I couldn't believe it. He said that. So I asked him afterwards, and he was, no, no, we had a lawsuit a few years ago, and the board has decided we're not taking gay applicants at all. And uh, it was, they had at the time, they had a waiting list of over 200 kids waiting for Big Brothers or Big Sisters. So I went and spoke with the executive director the next day, and it actually got pretty heated. But my point to him was that you are trying to handle your issue with pedophilia by discriminating against, gay applicants. And I had already been a Big Brother for 4 years successfully. I had all the references they would ever want with my previous little brother's mother and himself, but they would not back down. And I wrote him a letter then a couple of days later, and about 6 months later he got in touch with me, and the executive director called to say that they had changed their policy to be in line with the national organization, and that they were going to now start accepting uh, gay applicants again. And I told him I would be in eventually to apply again, which I did. That that was real hard for me because was just in the process of coming out with my sexual orientation, and to get boom, no, we're not going to do it. And I argued with him pretty, my point was that you're discriminating against people when you have a huge need for people that can help these people out. You can screen people, you can do whatever you need to do, but simply from the get-go saying no, even though somebody has done it successfully before, you're not serving the kids that are on that waiting list. And you're also going to have kids in that waiting list pool that eventually some of them will be gay. And if any of them come back to be a big brother, you're going to tell them, no, you're not good enough to be a big brother because of your sexual orientation. So that they did change the policy in line with the national organizations. And they were at that time only one of 4 or 5 in the entire nation that were excluding gay applicants. And so that was the biggest challenge. Beyond that, I think that we got some pretty close scrutiny on our matches, that because you were dealing with an organization that had for 4 or 5 years like completely excluded gay people. And I think our scrutiny was really tight, maybe tighter than some of the other people. And that brought a few issues up during the thing, but it eventually it all worked out. And at the end of my match with Michael, there was nobody in his life that was a biological relative. They were all people who had stepped forward to help him. There was me and my husband, and also my husband's little brother, and the foster mother and her entire family. No blood relatives. And here you have a kid that needed the help. And I think it was really important. If I hadn't had that delay between, if I got a second little brother when the first time, right after that meeting, I would have never met. So for me, it was a blessing that I had to go through that. And it eventually turned out good. And other people have gotten in to be big brothers through that organization. And it's a good thing. They need people from all walks of life to help with these people, and to help kids understand that there's some people out there that are willing to help you. And so that's where the primary change I had with, or challenge that I had with that. Beyond that, it wasn't an issue.
Is the program only designated for kids, or do they have programs available for adults that want to continue being in the program?
They have they generally are working with kids. I think at 18, the kids age out of the matches, and there are a lot of people who have kept in touch beyond the the 18-year period. You see in some of their newsletters, people that, at graduations, college graduations or weddings, that are their big brother or big sister are part of that. So there are people that carry on with that, but they are primarily focused to children, helping kids reach their potential. And it's been like that. They have gotten a little bit more diverse they still have the one-on-one matches where you're out in the community and whatnot, but they also have like that lunch program that I was in, and they have out here in this area, they have a tech program at middle schools and high schools where they try to get people who are in the tech industry to work with some of these kids to do it in the school setting. So and they also have some, I think, where they have a couple working that'll be matched with somebody. So they do it as a couple, and they've been trying to expand on that, which is it opens up the opportunity for the kids, and it opens up the opportunities for volunteers in different ways.
How many of the kids have you mentored personally have turned around and given back to the program as well and have become mentors as well?
Um, the ones I have mentored, my our passed away a year ago. He has 2 children and a granddaughter. He didn't become a mentor, but he and his wife became the guardians of his granddaughter. And I know for a fact that he really, they were an anchor for her in some of the turbulence in his life. And I'm sure that he got some of that from seeing how he was helped, but also understanding that what it was like to grow up in a single parent home and whatnot. He probably had some pretty good background on that, and he passed it along to his uh, his granddaughter. The second little brother never made it to that age. He didn't have any children, and the third little brother, or the third kid, is still out of recess, going 100 miles an hour, and so he'll be a second grader next year. Uh, I think I saw it in with my husband was also matched with a 7-year-old at the same time, and they occasionally we would do things together, the four of us, and challenges helped his little brother help the little brother to be exposed to challenges and to see the the challenges how he faced them and that, and it really made be it gave him a good experience of mentoring and also to being a really good friend to this kid and that so he benefited from that too. Um, so where there are people who move on from it and there are people who don't ever do it, but it opens people's eyes. I have a one of my brothers-in-laws was a little brother, and he's very active in helping out at the food share and all that.
Kind of switching gears a little bit, you also are an author. As you said, you wrote your memoir in memory of his 13-year journey. Um, when it comes to your writing career, who have been some of your big inspirations?
Probably my mother was huge. She was what she triggered the first real charge I got out of writing, but when I sent her a fake letter from a reelection committee asking her for money for the Nixon reelection campaign, and her being a staunch Democrat. Uh, my mother was a real inspiration, and when I wrote her that letter, I was there when she received it, and she to see her reaction kind of enthused me about writing because I was able to make somebody react to just some words arranged on paper, and it was pretty fun. Uh, she was also very inspirational all the way along in encouraging me to write, encouraging me to keep going with different things. And so she was a real inspiration on that. I have had taken some classes too, and I've had some really good instructors who have pushed to to improve your writing and not we would write in writing groups, and she was very uh made people make sure that the feedback that they gave was positive, and she herself was really good at uh t telling you how to put things into dialogue and how to move your story along and where to find thing and how to develop characters in that, and she is still an inspiration to me and has helped me with my work. I didn't I wasn't a real big reader as a kid, but I did a lot of writing with my work. When I was flying, I worked for the union doing some work, and I did a lot of writing there. And then after flying, I became a real estate agent, and my role in our team was to do all the marketing remarks and that. So that's where I get a lot of my experience from. I also had done some freelance writing with as guest columnist and articles and that. So I had a fair amount of experience before I started this book. The challenge with the book was getting getting it done. I had worked on it in three different periods basically, and after retirement, I had the time to put it together. And it was a different challenge in writing because of the length of a book, having to make sure all the way through that things matched and flowed. And then also there was a lot of personal information in there that was, I think that I got the experience of going before that was released, kind of really challenged whether, hey, should I be putting this out there, or what will people think? Or, do I need this in the story or don't I need it in that? And I've talked to other people that have had the same kind of queasiness before something was released about things that they may put out there in their personal realm that are uncomfortable, but it's also part of the story. So, and with each of those experiences, I learned a lot. I learned a lot just through the process of putting the book together. I found some other authors in the area and have been active with the author group. And that's been really, really helpful. You find people who have written all different kinds of stuff and some who are very monetarily successful in their work, others who do it just for fun. And it's a good group to hang around with.
What have been some challenges and rewards you've faced since publishing your first book?
The rewards are the people who have read it, who have given me feedback on it, that it it helped them. I also have done some book club meetings and whatnot, and and people come up and say that, oh, I had a brother that had similar challenges to Mike, or they've had mentally ill people in their family, or they do now, and how the struggle has been, and being able to talk to them about that, and that has been really rewarding. The promoting of the book has it's not something I'm highly comfortable with, but it has been fun along the way, and I've met some great people doing that. Those things were that. It also helped me personally put to bed some of the grief and whatnot around and his eventual end. But it also helped me relive that experience together by going through these things, and that was neat. It was that's that was something I didn't expect, but it was really really neat to do that.
Tell me the meaning and significance behind the book title.
When I first met him, they told me that he had trouble with transitions. They said, when you're out with him, you don't want to just say, okay, it's time to go. They're like, have, 3-minute warning, a 2-minute warning, and then go. So before I met him the first time, I made a little calendar for him, and I had marked his birthday and Christmas and that sort of thing on it. And I gave it to him so that he could have a visual. We could write down when we were going to get together the next time, and he would have a little visual chart of that so he could look and see how many days there were. He could count them or whatever. And what that turned into then was, when we would go home, I would to his house. He and I would sit on the couch next to his mom, and we would talk for quite a while and tell her what we had done. And we would get the calendar out and then mark what we were going to do the next time. What happened by chance was, in the boxes of the day we had just gotten through, I would draw these really basic two guys stick figures, like either swimming or boating or at a movie. And so he had a kind of written history about what we had done together. And then a lot of times when we're sitting there, he would flip through it and flip back to it through and looking at the different pictures of things that we had done over the time. That went on for about a 4-year period. Of every year, I would give him for Christmas a new calendar for the year, and he would continue to mark those. When he became unable, he got to the point where his mental illness made him dangerous to live with his adoptive mother. Those calendars, she had them for a while, but then they got, in one of his moves somewhere, they got lost. And so we don't have those anymore. But what happens is that towards the end of the book, the stick figure ties in again but that's where it came from. It was doing those little stick figures because it was a ritual that we had when we got back from whatever we were doing. And we did a real diverse collection of things to, to keep ourselves busy. So that's where that came from.
If someone wants to volunteer and become a big brother or big sister, is there any experience or background experience that you need to have to be able to be in the mentoring program?
I wouldn't say there's any background experience that you need to have. They are looking for people who usually, when I applied last, it was like they're looking for somebody that's willing to commit for a year in order to maintain some stability for the kids, and they try to do it on a regular basis every couple times a month and keep it in a routine. And then they do in the interviewing process, they take a little look at people's stability, like job wise and how they're doing. They don't want somebody who is going to switch jobs 2 months down the line after they make this commitment. They do some very thorough screening. It was probably about 6 hours total of screening the second time I did it, of interviews you one-on-one on with a caseworker, that they went through every aspect of your life, basically. And then if you're doing home stuff, they have certain restrictions on bringing the kid to your home, and they do a home check. And they're very involved in, they track the matches pretty good. But they are looking for people who are willing to spend some time with these kids, take them out, become a friend, and and stuff will come up. I had with where if something came up in our conversation during the time we were together, we had a deal that I had made with him that if I felt his mother needed to know it, that we could tell her when we got home. He could tell her while I was still there, or if he didn't want to do that, if he could wanted to tell her by himself, then I would that was good. But I was going to call her and make sure that she knew what was going on. So you set these boundaries and you work with it and become a friend, and it's just wide open. There's a lot of other different, mentoring programs out there that people can be involved with, and that is kind of the message I try to give out to people, especially younger people, that for me it became a real anchor in my life. It helped me give me some stability when I first got out of college and starting a new job, new place to live, all of that. But it also opened my eyes to other people's situations. It opened my eyes to how life is different for them than it is for me. It opened my eyes towards, especially in this case, what it's like to live with a disability, how to handle that in different ways, what I can do to encourage him, what I can't take care of. All of that stuff was important for me. It made me really take a look with situation when he developed the mental illness. uh, the whole question of why was somebody put on this earth in a rough start that he had, and then he gets into a situation that is he really made a lot of progress in, and then all of a sudden he has this disease that has taken over him, and that whole thing has transformed my life. It transforms how I look at people on the street when I see them, and because he had lived out in the streets, and I know what it's like to be missing someone and be out there looking for him and see if you can find him. And what the families go through is probably pretty incredible. But it just gets a volunteer out of your own world for a few hours. It helps you see somebody else how they live. It helps you help them out, and it can be a really impactful thing. And I don't regret any of the time that I spent with those guys. And I think for younger people coming out, especially like out of college or early in their careers, there's a lot of focus. There was in my life anyway of my career and gets established and gets make money and blah blah blah. But to have that couple hours a week, a few times a month, where focused on being with this kid and making conversation with them and doing some fun activities. That's a real good gets me out of my head for a while, and it also gives me some texture into my life that I really needed. And I would encourage anybody to do that because there's a huge need for it in these kids. The kids find somebody that can be a buddy with them for a little while and just get that understanding that, hey, there's somebody in my life that's willing to, to think I'm kind of important.
So for parents that maybe be a single parent and they think that the program would be a good thing for their child, can you explain a little bit of the process of how a parent can register their child to be a part of the program?
They would I know I don't speak for the Big Brother agency other than my own experience with it, but they have their websites to have contact information, and the parent can contact them and just see if this is a program that would fit for their kid. Um, and that's probably with any volunteer organization. I give a lot of credit to all the mothers that I have worked with because they took that step to help their kids. They reached out to see, okay, maybe this can help them. And I know it was a good break for the mothers for a couple hours when you would take their kid out, and it's a good break for the big brother in that, okay, here we spent 2 hours, he's back. Not my responsibility anymore. But that's how they can do it. They approach, look up the agency online or whatever and get in their contact number. And if they can't help you, they might have another direction to go. Churches or whatever probably have similar programs. But the thing about helping and doing it is it's really good for the volunteer. And people talk, you hear a commitment of a year for that kind of time, but it's when you break it down into short periods of time, and 2 hours is nothing when we look at, I always say when we look at how much time I spend on my phone, what's 2 hours? I spend that easy on the phone in a day kind of thing. So
Well, Dennis, I appreciate you so much for sitting down with me, and having our conversation today. Hopefully someone out there will hear this and feel inspired to maybe join in a program, or they might have some single parents out there listening that might have a child that might benefit from it. To learn more about the programs and stuff, feel free to plug the webs if you have a website or social media. Feel free to have you promote that right now, and as well as your book as well.
sure, the book is called Stick Figures, A Big Brother Remembers by DJ Quinn. And it's a fairly quick read. A, it's a real good look overview of the time I spent with and how it affected me and how I grew from it. That's available on my website. I have a website, djquinnauthor.com, and the books are for sale there. They're also for sale on Amazon. I have another one, a little early reader adventure story about two kids that hear about a pirate's treasure and go looking for it. It's called Raft Island Treasure Hunters, and that's available on the website also. And the Big Brothers, Big Sisters.org, I think is the website that will lead you to any of the organization chapters closest to you, that which is a good outreach, or just Googling Big Brothers, Big Sisters.
Well, I've appreciated you coming on, and for my listeners, I'll always put his links down below. I'll link his book, his website, his social media down there that he has available. I'll put all of his links in the description box below, so it'll be all in one place for you to find easily. For my podcast, I'm available on Instagram, TikTok, Lethal Venom Podcast there. Facebook, it's Noah's Podcast. The podcast is available wherever you get your podcast from. It's the main one: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Pandora, YouTube. I mean, it's basically everywhere. Um, and YouTube, it's Noah's Podcast. It's just the audio version of it, kind of similar to how the other platforms are. Um, but I wanted to give a huge thank you to Dennis for joining us today and telling me his story and telling us a little bit about his background. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, evening, or night. and I'll catch you all in the next episode of Lethal Venom.